one of the things that is crucial to understand as a Catholic is the sacraments come from God, not man. And this is why we should have a solemn respect toward them our whole life long, as they are really the current of God's saving power, for they have a real saving effect on our soul. And if we don't have this mentality, there's a real disorder in our soul. Paul mentions to draw your strength from the Lord and his mighty power. And the sacraments are where the mighty power of God is operative. But on our part, we must have a proper disposition or this real desire to grow in goodness and holiness. Also to be submissive to Christ and his church, where we have an openness to recognize our need for God's help in receiving them. Otherwise, we are as prideful as the demons. For one of the devil's tactics is to seek to get us to leave the church or think we can carve out our own path to get to heaven or get there by our own power without the church God called into being or the bread of life in a state of grace. And this is why in the early church, St. Paul mentions the fact of giving someone over to Satan or excommunicating them from the church, because in the church, the sacraments are God's divine help to grow in holiness, virtue, and sanctity. And they are referred to as the finger of God, where demons are cast out, people are healed, sins are absolved, and they draw us into this real loving union with God. And all of this takes place when we receive them humbly and devoutly throughout our lives. They literally restore our image of God through strengthening us to live holy lives. A road contrary to the ways of the world, where people are led by the devil and their passions. In fact, this is one of the main reasons of hatred for the Catholic Church. People are dominated by Satan, and they hate the fact that their very ability to reason goes against their way of life. For all sin and evil is irrational. In the spiritual life, we begin to see that receiving the sacraments is where we come to find strength from God in whatever we struggle with. For Christ came to save real sinners. Sometimes it is our self-image, for we think we're not loved by God because of our sins. Sometimes it's a specific sin we're trying to overcome in our weakness. Sometimes it's to simply be strengthened to continue on in a holy path of life. Sometimes it's help to be strong in the midst of all the burdens of life. And sometimes it's at the end of our lives where we experience our real weakness and death approaching, and we look to God and eternal glory as our only hope in these situations. And there are a variety of reasons we can and should seek to draw strength from God. And this is why St. Paul teaches us to do so. For the sacraments are God's divine help, and the way that we experience God's strength, peace, and salvation today.